Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
In the office.
Yeah. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You also look like...
I am not. This is a virtual background.
But you look like you're from the office.
Yeah.
Isn't that good enough?
Yes.
Is that an actual picture of your office?
No, it does. It is one of the default pictures from Teams, actually. But our office, so I think at the start of the whole COVID thing, they did like take pictures in the office and then like, hey, here are some like virtual backgrounds for you to use. So you look like you're in the office.
Cool. Yeah, the start of the pandemic was some weird figuring of things.
Yeah. Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hello. Is this your first time on the call?
Yeah, that's my first time here.
Oh, nice. Welcome.
I'm not sure how the... Oh, is your speaker on? That might be how we're getting feedback.
Is Davis in the same room?
Oh,
I'm just gonna keep myself over here.
Yeah. I don't know where Davis is. Maybe he'll join.
Oh, is that Julian?
All right. Do we want to start? What? There was some feedback or something. What was that?
I asked if that's Julian. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Is who Julian?
Is the person with you in the room Julian?
Oh no, it's Alex.
Oh, okay.
You
guys are in the same room. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, this was confusing.
Wow.
I was gonna introduce him when everyone showed up.
Because you didn't you have the same background, so that's why it was confusing.
Yeah, the magic of 90-degree or 100 and let's say 60-degree angles. Hey Rita, how's it going?
Hey.
So I guess I may as well introduce. So Alex is going to be working with us on Gatekeeper.
Hey Alex, welcome.
Also, we're all Bay Area. Just there's that. But other folks who's going to join later are not. So.
Are you in the office, Rita?
Not today. I'm actually planning on going in on Friday.
Interesting. The day I am not in the office.
I mean, I'm only doing Friday because that's like the only day that there's like not back-to-back meetings. Easier for me to take the train.
Which is so ironic because like the office is, I don't know, what's the benefit of the office? Meeting people, I guess. But if they're like meetings with remote people.
Yeah, what's the point, right? Yeah. It's like the tree falls in the forest. What tree?
Wait, what forest are you in again? Oh, I'm in a different forest.
Maybe we can get started. Like, we can, we got quite a bit of agenda here. Maybe just start with the performance issues first.
Sure.
So Millie can come later. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just, for the performance issues, I put up the 2 GitHub issues that I'm aware of that I think are referencing the same thing. It seems to be cached data that is involved, and I thought originally this was lock contention, but I'm less sure now. And it looks like, because part of why I'm less sure is that lock contention thing shouldn't have been new with the Will's performance changes that he did. And in one of those issues that I linked, someone said, well, here's my latency prior to the performance improvements, and here's it afterward, and it's worse, right? Which shouldn't have been the case. So I dug through the Rego code to figure out what could possibly be doing this, why there's a penalty for having cached data, even if there's no Rego that references it. It looks like for the most part there shouldn't be. However, our use of the with statement triggers a deep copy. And we do with data.inventory as data.external, blah, 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 right? So we're essentially deep copying the entire cache. I don't think per constraint. I think it's per template, the way the execution path is set up, but that's still a lot of unnecessary work. So I'm hoping removing the with fixes the issue. The sad part about that is part of why we had the with was to hedge against a time when we might have like namespace scoped constraints. The idea was that with would provide a mechanism for limiting which cache data was visible. So you couldn't use namespace scoped constraints or templates as a way of reading data outside of the namespace you're operating in. I think there are probably other ways of achieving that if that's a route we want to go on that don't involve the use of with. But yeah, unless we want to update Rego to having like some sort of copy on write behavior, which would not be a quick or easy change. I think this is the short-term fix at least. So yeah, and by the way, I'm looking to get numbers for this to validate that it actually is improving things, but my confidence is fairly high.
Do we want to wait for this for 3.10 or?
Any thoughts? It was more of an FYI / here's what I
Max can hear us.
I don't think Max can hear us. Yes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Were you talking before?
Yeah, I just asked if we need to wait in 3.10.
He's asking, does this change block 3.10 release?
Yeah.
I think it is a backwards compatible change. So if we wanted to call it a patch release, we could. I don't think there's a reason to delay other than if we wanted to signify like, hey, you probably really want this if you have cache data. But there's also, it's speculation that it'll improve, but I think fairly well-founded speculation. So there's some risk, right, that if we put it off, we won't get any benefit anyway.
So it sounds like another way to ask is, could this change be cherry-picked to earlier releases?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
maybe it doesn't make sense to wait
it could be cherry picked to every release that has Will's performance improvements. I think trying to go beyond that, and that's pretty old at this point.
So this wasn't a regression, right? In 3.10, this would have happened since 3.9.
Right. This would have the performance regression for cache data would have happened at the time we introduced the performance improvements for apparently everything but cache data.
This would be 3.8.
Okay, yeah, so 3.8 is.
But would we call this a regression for cache data?
Well, not anymore. It is with respect to like
before this patch, it would have regressed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think honestly, if my thesis is right, this will wind up being an overall performance improvement post-patch, even relative to 3.7. Because we were doing the with statement at 3.7 too. It's just that the way now where before Rego tried to at least cache the fact that you had used the with statement with the same key before, so that it wouldn't have to copy again and again, whereas now every constraint template is a new execution. So there is this multiplicative factor to it that got added in. So long story short, I think this will be an across-the-board performance improvement. I don't think there will be a regression at the end of this, but we did make the problem worse in the short term from 3.8 to 3.10.0 if we cut it.
But only for cache data, OPA cache data.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we don't have to wait for it, but let's do a patch once we can confirm this improves things, and then we can also cherry pick to 3.9.
Gotcha. Yeah, works for me.
Good.
So does that mean users shouldn't use with either, or I'm trying to understand.
I would recommend against it for Rego. We're still, to be clear, we're still actually using with to overwrite input, but that's a much smaller hunk of data we're deep copying at that point.
I see. You just don't want to with a big chunk of something.
Exactly. Yeah. Gotcha. And all things being equal, if you could avoid with, it's better. That is a very confusing statement out of context if you didn't know that with was a keyword. Another thing that's interesting is because we are running with as a per constraint template thing, if you have it just in one template, you won't see any like incremental, assuming this caching of it happened, you won't see any incremental increase in latency when you add more constraints. It's only the number of unique templates that have the with statement in their source code that causes the latency to scale. Yeah. Anyway, I'm hopeful.
Well, thanks for spotting the issue.
I can see your lips move, but I cannot hear you.
I think you have a delay, maybe.
But now I hear you fine. I don't know what this is.
Maybe it's your audio driver. Anyway, I said, like, how did you figure out it's that with is the problem?
You read through the Rego codes. So that it was cached data was interesting, right? That led me to trying to trace down how does Rego use this data store, right? Because my first theory was, okay, well, we must be doing something like when Rego acquires a transaction, it's acquiring some lock or something, and that's where this complexity is coming from. So I read through the store code for the in-mem storage, and I read through the process by which, because we have all this like bootstrapping things behind the like rego.new code that we use. So I read through that process to see. And it turns out that the way everything is written currently, it does create a transaction, but it creates a read transaction. And accessing data at that point does just create like a soft copy, right? So I didn't see anything really there that would tend to yield extra complexity. And so I dug through bits of the code because, again, this was still associated with cache data. So then my next stop was, okay, well, where is the storage accessed? And I found the bit of code that processes the with statement, and there's a couple of branches for that code, depending on whether you're referencing data storage versus like an imported module or whatever. And that's where I saw the deep copy, because it takes the reference data and it puts it in this other handle, essentially, that's like the with handle, and it, when you do a read, it checks that before it checks other places. And when it puts things in the with handle, it does a deep copy. And as I said, it appears to memoize the fact that that happened. It's less clear to me how the unwrapping of that would work, right? Like if you did nested withs, such that you did like with data.inventory as this thing, and then you had with data.inventory.foo as this other thing, right? Once you go back up a layer and it's just data.inventory again, like maybe that triggers another copy. I didn't like try to fully understand the optimization there because I had enough to know that we were at least doing it once, and that was probably bad enough. So I wanted to get a signal that avoiding doing that yielded performance improvements. So that was my Friday.
Cool.
Hello.
We go to the next item.
Sorry, I was late.
No worries. You want to talk about the thing you put on the agenda?
Yes, it's real quick. I mean, so it's the same PR for the Artifact Hub. So I've addressed all the review comments. I just want another round of review. Yeah, that's it. That's the only reason I put it there. So whenever you get a time, please give it another go. And once everything is done, I'll publish it on Artifact Hub.
Sounds good. I will take a look. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Cool.
Cool. Any other topics? For the performance thing, do you want to wait on numbers before approving that PR? And then I assume if the numbers are good, we'll just like put it in there and push the patches and all that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Oh yeah. If there's nothing else, what do we want to do about that CVE thing?
Was there any follow-up to that discussion?
No.
I
just remembered.
I think we need to ping OPA again.
OPA, no, it's not a person. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anyone here, just for the purposes of making sure we're all on the same page, does everyone kind of agree with what I had said about we should like figure out if the support windows can be aligned such that we at least, okay, cool.
I mean, that's what I suggested, but I didn't even get into the details because it didn't seem like there was prior practice for this. So
yeah, I was a little surprised about that, that they have not gotten this question before. Looks like Stefan replied. I did not read his message.
Yeah, I didn't either. Okay, let's just continue to discuss on Slack then.
Yeah, I think there's also a question on the security email about some other CVEs, like the Golang CVE.
I fixed that one.
Yeah. I don't know. Did my response? Did you guys see my response?
I did not. Is that one on the CNCF emails?
No, it's on the like secrets security reporting email. Someone sent a question about.
I don't know if I want that.
Yeah. And I think this is fine to say because this is like well-known CVEs, and they were just asking, "Hey, what's your plan for these CVEs?"
Right.
Is just the Golang, the XNet?
That's the one you fixed. Yeah.
Okay.
There's that one. There was one about that we were never really subject to, which was the Rego not capabilities.
The with unsafe something.
Yeah, and the workaround was these capabilities, and we always and then there was another Rego one that I wanted Styra's input on, just to see if what our security position is with relation to the CVE. But that one was talking about if you had certain, if the user was able to inject malicious input, is how they worded the CVE. And from what I looked at, the citing or tried to go through the code, it looked like it was talking about malicious Rego specifically, because it's talking about, or it pointed to compilation errors, where if you had enough compilation errors, it would, or if it failed to heal from compilation errors or something like that, it would eventually trigger a panic. And they said that could be a vector for DDoS. And my intuition...
This one, right? The one that I linked, the last one?
Let me see.
The one that fixed in 0.42. The astcompile.com.
Oh, did that get... Oh, okay.
It's also in the issue. This one I'm not sure if Gatekeeper is impacted, so we should definitely confirm with OPA.
Yeah, okay. The CVE doesn't say it's fixed. They should probably put that in there.
It does. It says patched version 0.42.
In the, if you click through to the CVE, up to excluding. Okay. So this is, what version are we currently on? I mean, 44 for head, but
41.1 or something like that, I think, 439.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it would be interesting to know, because like I'm kind of okay saying you shouldn't have any malicious constraint template authors. But I do think if we're vulnerable to other types of input, right? Like if you could craft a specific YAML that causes Gatekeeper to crash, that would potentially be a concern.
Yes, 41 for 390.
So it sounds like Stefan doesn't really think it's necessary to cherry pick.
I do not like that.
He says, I understand the wish to limit the code changes being pulled in a patch release as a matter of principle. But that said, I wouldn't like to make matters of principle our main decision driver. Also, please help me out here. What does Gatekeeper do to limit the impact of an OPA version bump in a major or minor release? Are the steps involved something that can be done for a patch release?
I think it's the it's the behavior change, right?
I guess he's arguing that there shouldn't be. He said that we always take care of the old policy so that they will continue to work in new OPA versions.
Not strictly true. Sometimes they've done scans of Rego code to make sure that certain statements haven't been used. And if that Rego code isn't visible, there's a bit of a probabilistic approach taken in those instances. And of course, they're contemplating breaking language changes when they go to OPA 1.0. And as much as I'm not for unforced breaking changes, like doing it at a major version is probably the place to do it if you wanted to. I think if they are like 100% committed to language level like wire compatibility, right? Like code that was valid in 43 is valid in 44 and behaves the same way, then sure, right? Because the main concern I would imagine as a Gatekeeper customer is I want to be able to address CVEs, and I don't necessarily want to have updating all of my policies be a blocker to doing that.
Yeah.
But that window is like variable, right? It's not just 43 to 44. So in this case, it's 41 to 44. And it could be, I don't know, 30 something to 44.
Right.
So it's basically whenever we release n-1 to.
So I think the more general way of what I'm saying is if their contract is that if for a minor release that is less than the current minor release, if the Rego that was valid then will be valid now.
But it's all minor releases.
And that's not, as I said, been true in the strictest sense of the word, right? They've tried to mitigate by looking for instances where people are using a certain behavior that they wanted to roll back. I think these are emergent behaviors more than features of the language spec, but even still, people can rely on those. And it also presupposes that there's never going to be any language level security issue. So where a breaking change is just unavoidable. Granted, at that point, what do we do, right? We do have to perform.
We don't know, right? It's hard for us to guarantee that, sort of.
Well, so Rego, technically for us, Rego is explicitly carved out of our backwards compatibility guarantees because we have no control over it. I don't think that means we can ignore it, right? Because
no one will understand the nuance there.
Yeah, and the impact is the same either way, right? There's a difference between not promising something we can't and just ignoring the issue.
But I think the big thing here that I can tell is they're basically saying there shouldn't be, right, any language level change that would break people. So
that sounds like a wonderful goal.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
I think it's all good until it breaks somebody.
yeah. It also feels really weird that whenever we're patching, we're literally bumping the OPA version. And because they only have minor versions right now, it's like we're literally bumping that just because of a CVE.
Yeah. I mean, they do have patch versions, but it's pretty rare.
I mean, I
guess not that rare, but occasionally. But it sounds like they only patch the end, latest one. They don't go back and patch the previous ones.
I think it depends on if you consider OPA a library or not, a library of Gatekeeper. Like if controller runtime changed in some in some user invisible way that we still wanted to get whatever fix, like say there was a Go routine leak and it required a backwards incompatible change from an API level, but we're wrapping that API, it could make sense for Gatekeeper to call that a patch release, even though from a controller runtime perspective, that's like a major version change or something like that. I think what makes Rego special is that we are exporting the language directly to the user, right? So there's some validity in the point of, well, the language should be valid throughout, so why do you care? I think, though, the presumption that that can always be true is not something that you can really have ironclad guarantees around.
Okay, let's follow up with them on Slack then. Fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they want something ad hoc where there's an informal agreement of like, if there is actually some language change, we'll start doing patch releases across that boundary. Like, sure, like for doing extra work for the sake of like a pro forma kind of mechanistic thing, that doesn't make sense to me either. But we should at least have some sort of understanding of what happens when this ideal breaks down.
Exactly. By the way, this happened. There was an issue about Go dependencies in Kubernetes that we all thought was really interesting. So basically, it's similar in that the supported version of Kubernetes depends on a no longer supported EOL Go version. So when that guy has a CVE, Kubernetes is forced to bump the Go dependency, but obviously that introduces other variables, right? So that's why the Kubernetes community is working with the Go folks to see if they can do CVE patches for those to minimize the amount of new things that gets introduced.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Yeah,
it's very similar. It like reminded, like I was telling Sertaj, I was like, this reminds me of that.
I remember that discussion.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Well, and does that kind of put the lie to something I just said around like, well, it's a library, so we can insulate users?
That's why I'm like, it's. I mean, I don't think it's even the same here because, to your point, like where like users are using Rego directly, that's like even more, in my opinion, that's even more exposure than Go.
Yeah. And what's the Go? I know Go had a TLS thing. Is there how else does it bubble up to where people who consume K8s are concerned about the Golang it's based on?
I'm guessing like features. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, the TLS thing is definitely one. What else? Are you talking about the SSL thing?
Yeah, there's two things, or maybe they're the same thing and I'm misremembering, but they changed how the certs were expected to be constructed.
Oh yeah, it's on this last link I sent. There's like 4 things maybe. I think the one that you're talking about is the second one, the 115 with the CN field.
Yeah, the CN field, that definitely sounds familiar. And then there was also, the that flag that we set, the min TLS version. I think that was somewhat related to a Golang library change. Is that right?
No.
I thought that's a server. I thought that's a controller manager.
Yeah, that's a controller runtime thing.
Oh.
They just default to 1.0 for some reason.
Cool.
But yeah, if you look into that Kubernetes issue, I was the one that said, "Hey, how about we all together maintain a fork?" and then Liga was like, "No."
Yeah.
How about we
know?
Yeah, I also said that's probably not the best idea.
Everyone's thinking it. I might as well just say it so that on record we've thought about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it would be like, let's put the non-Go maintainers in charge of the approving Go code that they don't know what they're doing.
Well, I think this is Rita's route to becoming a Go maintainer. I think that's the secret motivation.
Negative. But seriously, like coming back to the OPA thing though,
So we fork OPA?
Huh?
We fork OPA?
No. Oh my God, guys.
That's funny.
But like I think we should try our best to figure out a good way to introduce CVE patches. I don't think we should just assume, oh, everything's just backward compatible and everything will just work. Like I think that's a very naive assumption.
I mean, honestly, I did think about forking it.
No.
There are some really bad ideas. Or we can like fix it in our vendor thing. That's another bad idea.
No. We don't want to carry more things in our vendor. Please no.
In the worst case I could think of, let's say, and this is maybe inevitable with Rego V1, if they do some of these breaking changes. If we don't want to export that breaking change to our users, essentially the only option I could think of, other than like freezing Rego at a point in time, which is probably not the best idea, would be to export 2 different flavors of Rego, right? You could do Rego V1 or Rego V0 dot. And let the template authors decide.
That sounds like a lot of work.
I think the problem with it is how Go vendoring works. Like I suspect they're not gonna do well, particularly because they don't have to. That Go mod stuff where you need to put that /v1/v2. Actually, you don't need the /v1, the /v2/v3. That would have been a way of importing both flavors of the syntax, but other than that, I don't think there's a way of importing 2 versions of a library at once.
But in the meantime, so that issue is I mean, we can't close that issue until this is figured out, right?
Yeah, I think the best thing we can do is fix on 310 and basically folks will
I mean, it's already fixed on 310 because we're using the latest.
Right. So, and when we release it, folks can move to
right.
that one. So that's the happy path.
But what I don't like about this is like you're literally telling your users like, oh, because of this CV, now you have to use the latest gatekeeper. And then by the way, we have like N-2, N and N-1 support contract, right? So that essentially means your N-1 is no good.
Well, I mean, there's a backwards compatibility, but yeah. So technically we're fine. Yeah, I think also like if we take at face value that the difference between 41 and 44, or whatever the versions were, are wire compatible as far as like the Rego and its behavior, we could just update Rego, right? Because I don't suspect it can always be true. Doesn't mean I think this is an instance where it is not true. And the even if it was like a patch release, right? If our objection is, well, yeah, sure, that's maybe Rego's intent, but how could they know they didn't do something that like has some subtle change that breaks the language? Like even a patch could do that, right?
Right.
At that point, it's just bug.
So I guess how long do we want to wait?
Before just doing the 44 thing, or before what?
Yeah.
I think it depends on if you feel like the discussion needs to be forced. Like, I'm not convinced, honestly, that OPA would feel any pressure from the fact that we have a partial like support issue, right? Like, I just don't see much incentive there for them to put it brutally, care very much, other than just altruism, and we are part of the same what are we called, open policy agent, that's a project, right? We're part of the same project, so from that sense they should care, but from a pragmatic sense I don't see the incentives.
If you fork it, where does it go?
Haha. It just doesn't look good that the thing has been open for, I don't know how many days now, 8 days,
right? And this is like the cable provider battles, right? When someone drops a channel, like we could adopt 44 assuming there's no like demonstrated incompatibility,
right?
We just would prefer knowing
there's a better way. There's a better feature. Yeah.
But I mean, there should be a precedent, right? Like for future versions.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why I almost feel like if we merge it, it's almost like saying it's okay.
And then like where do we jump from what to what, right? Say there's like 10 different minor versions. Do we jump 10 minor versions?
I mean, if anything, this is teaching us when we do a release, we make sure we're using the latest.
Right. But I mean, our releases have like time in between, and OPA seems to have a higher cadence.
2 months. The 2 month, it's 2 months, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, huh?
I mean, it's 2 months. It's
2 months. Yeah. But it could be 4 months, right? Because it's N-1. So anything we cut, it has like at least 4 months. So in that 4 months, the n number of minor releases could have gone out for OPA.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could establish some sort of like the sort of special gatekeeper releases that we can cherry pick to. If you're not saying like, hey, for all releases, let's just do it. Maybe some sort of like
I guess what I'm saying is I don't think we can resolve this thing today or tomorrow or even this week. I think let's continue to discuss with the right people and figure a way out. But this guy, should we just merge it? Because again, it doesn't look good.
Which one?
We're a security project, and so we should do a good job of demonstrating, patching CVEs.
I'm fine personally with merging it, right? Like if we wanted to, we could test it against the constraint library to see if anything actually breaks, right? Just to put some evidence behind this assertion it's FARA compatible.
But I think we just set this precedent, so.
Well, I think this is something we've, well, one, done before, and two.
I don't think we've done this before. This is the first time, because I think we said no to the last one.
Interesting, right? But I think honestly, we're just causing pain to ourselves. We're not actually causing pain to OPA by refusing to do this, right? So
Yeah,
it's not a great bargaining chip to the extent that not doing it so we can continue the discussion is the purpose for not doing it.
So Sartash, yes, it's a precedent, but once we agree on a good path forward, hopefully we can just say that's a one-off.
But what happens if we do this and it breaks somebody? I'm not saying it is going to, but
I mean that's the risk.
I mean that's the risk, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, is fixing the CVEs that potentially don't. I mean, we know one of them don't affect gatekeeper. The second one we need to check are these CVEs more important than potentially breaking somebody?
Well, if we break someone, they can downgrade, right? It's like not great that they got broken by a patch release, but patch releases aren't zero risk. Like generally, they're supposed to be less risk than major or minor releases.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it, that's fine. I just think it's risky.
Yeah, I think all of us are kind of in agreement that this is not the ideal path, if that makes you feel any better. I don't think it's a realistic thing that we see any benefit from going down, trying to do the ideal thing here. I just think we'll wind up it not being settled and the 3.9 will have fallen out of support window if we try to stick to our guns here.
Yep.
I mean, will we revisit this if we like fix this?
I think we can be as annoying about this as we want, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like every time it happens.
I will be that person. No, I'm serious. We need to figure this out because it will happen again. So
right. Because I feel like if we fix it, then we might not follow up on this because it's sorry.
No. I'm saying between all of us, let's make sure this doesn't fall through the cracks.
So right? here's another like happy narrative for the future for this. With the cell cap, right? And if we have changes that allow us to use the cell cap, right? The cell cap will be subject to Kubernetes backwards compatibility guarantees, right? And those are more stringent than even gatekeepers. So at that point, we have an alternative, right? Where we say, okay, well, see, the thing is, we can't prevent disruption of policies that are written in Rego, but we can with Cell because we have this, contract that we're relying on. And at that point, there actually is incentive, right? Because we have somewhere to go. And
I mean,
I'm assuming
for the users, but sure.
I mean, it would suck for the users either way, right? Like if they need to update all their Rego, why not update all of their Rego to Cell, right? It might be a higher lift for sure. And the point is less that this would actually happen and more just that the dynamics are there, right? Because right now we're sort of captive. And that's why this is an ineffective bargaining approach. If we're not captive, then the power dynamics changes, then the results possibly change. Not to be,
So with that, can y'all just provide another round of reviews? And I want to unblock that thing first, and then
Yeah.
we'll continue to discuss. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? And I'm sorry for other 3 folks that you had to like hear all this, but
Hopefully it's at least interesting. I thought it was interesting. Then again, I was talking.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the forking conversation.
the 14.
Yeah, working is always fun.
It's good to learn when you aren't like involved, actually.
Can we fork the compiler?
Which the AST compiler?
No, I mean just all the compilers. I want to make sure the machine language we generate, you know. I'm being silly. That's why
Cool. Anything else?
Rito is moving things along.
What, me?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I have like so many things. I just want to, come on, let's go.
Wrap it up.
Let's go. All right. It was great to see y'all.
See ya.
Yeah.
Welcome again, Alex. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.